I am Helena, 70 years old, and I walk through St. Augustine, where the streets creak with memories. The salty wind comes from the Atlantic, carrying the smell of seaweed that brings me back to the mornings when Arnaldo and I walked along the shore before he departed. At 70, the body learns to store sounds. The kettle that boils, the door that insists on sticking, the crack of the wood when midnight breathes. I keep everything because my life has always been about keeping savings, words, memories, and above all, silences. My son, Daniel, lives only 20 minutes away from my house, on a street lined with tall palm trees and lawns so perfectly trimmed they look as if someone drew them with a ruler. He is 45 years old, works in IT, and spends most of his days running between meetings, reports, and endless deadlines that seem to swallow him whole. He is also the father of 3 small constellations that orbit my life. Laura, the eldest, is 15. She pretends not to hear me when I call her, but when the weight of sadness bends my shoulders, she slips an arm around me, quietly steadying me as if she has always known the way grief works. Sophia, 12, lives in a world of sketches and blue oceans. She fills her notebooks with whales and drifting ships and sometimes whispers to me her secrets, asking me to keep them safe, as though I were a treasure chest she could lock away. Miguel, the youngest, is 8. He still runs into my arms without hesitation, without breaks, as if the world could collapse and yet everything would remain whole so long as I was there to catch him. Camila, my daughter-in-law, is 40. Beautiful and always has been. She speaks quickly, her words almost tripping over one another, and she walks with the urgency of someone forever late to a better life that is waiting just around the corner. She insists that family is her priority, and perhaps it truly is. At least the version of family that fits neatly inside the frame she has hung on the living room wall. The first time Daniel introduced her to me, I noticed a determined light in her eyes, the kind that does not waver. When they married, I still painted my nails with the same cheap red polish that Arnaldo, my late husband, used to say made my hands look like fire. Camila gave me a French manicure kit one day, telling me it was more discreet, more sophisticated. Modern, she called it. I thanked her politely, placed it in the drawer of my dresser, and never opened it again. Today is Sunday, and there will be a dinner at their house. Daniel messaged me on the family app, calling it kind of a pre-birthday dinner, nothing formal. I laughed softly to myself when I read that. With Camila, nothing is ever truly informal. Even a casual meal has its rituals. Separate cutlery for appetizers, wine glasses aligned in a row, and napkins folded into intricate shapes. Lilies, swans, or sometimes fans, as though the table itself needed to perform. I chose my navy blue dress, the one with heavy fabric that settles against my body with seriousness, and pressed it carefully with the iron. I also laid out my gold chain with the small medal of Our Lady of Aparecida, a gift from my mother that has traveled with me across oceans and through decades. That medal is more than jewelry. It is proof of endurance. While I prepare an apple pie in my quiet kitchen, I remember the recipe's origin. I learned it during my first job in this country, a job that seemed small at the time, but planted seeds of survival in me. I think back to the day I sold our tiny house in the old neighborhood so Daniel could afford college tuition. He has never known the full story. He only knows the surface, the polished version. Mom always found a way. Underneath that surface lies a floor made of restless nights. Nights spent sewing clothes for strangers, scrubbing staircases that belonged to people who barely learned my name, translating documents by the dim glow of a lamp while Daniel slept soundly in the next room. My life was a patchwork quilt, stitched together from exhaustion and hope, and I was the thread that kept it from unraveling. I placed the pie into a basket, wrapping it carefully with a checkered towel. Outside, the sky carries the bruised colors of a peach left too long in the sun, pink and orange bleeding into one another, a beauty that hurts a little when you stare too long. As I step out, I feel something in my chest, not quite fatigue but heavier than breath. It is a stumble of the heart, a premonition that whispers in silence. I have lived long enough to recognize when unease sits at the table with you before you've even served the meal. With Camila, I have learned that humiliation rarely enters the room shouting. It does not announce itself with harsh words or sharp tones. No, it slips in quietly, settling in the arch of an eyebrow raised just a fraction too high, in the pause before a comment delivered sweetly but meant to cut, in the way she looks at my dress as though measuring it against her invisible catalog of taste. That is where humiliation begins, not in loudness but in subtle movements, in gestures that linger long after the room has emptied. And still I go. I go because Daniel is my son, because my grandchildren are the light stitched into my aging days, because even when silence wounds me, love insists I remain present. I walk with the pie warm against my arm, my necklace cold against my chest, and my memories alive in the air around me. I am Helena, 70 years old, keeper of sounds, saver of silences, guardian of a family that does not always see the scaffolding of sacrifice beneath their comfort. And though my steps are steady, my heart carries the weight of both history and premonition, as if each street toward Daniel's house were another page written in a book I can never stop carrying. Daniel's house rises at the end of a wide street lined with palm trees, the kind of street where neighbors compete silently over lawns trimmed like military haircuts. His house is bigger than anything I ever dreamed of when I was raising him alone. White walls, a long porch with wicker chairs that are more for show than rest, and windows that shine like polished silver under the Florida sun. When I step onto the porch, I can already hear the clinking of glasses, voices overlapping with a music playlist that sounds too polished, too curated. Before I can knock, the door flies open. It's Laura, my 15-year-old granddaughter, tall and awkward in the way only teenagers can be. "Grandma," she whispers, her eyes bright, and pulls me inside as if she's smuggling a secret treasure. The smell hits me first, lemon polish mixed with cinnamon and the faint roast of beef. It's warm but sterile too, like a magazine picture of family life rather than the messy, lived-in kind. Sophia, 12, rushes down the hallway with a pencil tucked behind her ear. She shoves a folded paper into my hands. "I drew this for you, Grandma. It's a turtle, see? With your initials on the shell, so you'll never lose it." My throat tightens and I kiss her hair. Then comes Miguel, 8 years old, barreling down the stairs, clinging to my waist like a wave crashing against a rock. "Did you bring the hug pie?" he shouts, and I laugh, nodding. His little cheer. Yes. Grandma's hug pie echoes through the house. And then she appears. Camila, my daughter-in-law, my adversary wrapped in silk. Her dress fits perfectly, her hair falls in smooth curls that look sculpted, and her smile, oh, that smile, lands near me but never on me. Helena, she says, voice dripping with civility. She leans in, pressing her cheek against the air near mine, careful not to smudge her makeup. Her eyes fall on the gold chain around my neck, my old medal of Our Lady of Aparecida, worn from decades of rubbing between my fingers. So traditional, she murmurs, head tilted, lips curving into something that almost looks like pity. I place my apple pie on the counter in the kitchen. She wipes an imaginary speck from the granite before setting her hand where the pie sits. I hope it isn't too sweet, she says, loud enough for the room to hear. Daniel's watching his sugar. My lips twitch with the reply I want to give. That sugar sometimes saves broken cakes, just like small kindness saves broken families. But I swallow it. The living room is already full. 2 of Daniel's coworkers in crisp shirts, their laughter sharp as glass. Evelyn Parker, the elegant neighbor who always seems to know too much, perched gracefully on the armchair. And the pastor Joshua, whose deep voice used to calm storms in me when Arnaldo was alive. They chatter, wine glasses in hand, while I find my place on the edge of the sofa, my hands folded like a schoolgirl called into the principal's office. On the wall, framed photographs of Daniel's family beam down like a silent jury. In none of them am I the centerpiece. Sometimes I'm cropped at the edge, sometimes blurred, a ghost caught in the background. I stare at one, Daniel holding Laura as a toddler, and remember the night I sold my sewing machine to buy him a decent suit for his first job interview. The house remembers me in fragments, but the pictures don't. Everyone, Camila says, tapping her glass with a spoon, her voice instantly commanding the room. Let's raise a toast. Daniel has been chosen to lead a new project at the firm. Applause bursts. My chest swells with pride so fast it almost breaks my ribs. I stand, kiss his hair, whisper, "I'm proud of you, son." He kisses me back, fast, like stamping a paper before rushing off to another task. I sit again, and the questions come, polite but sharp. "Do you live alone, Helena? Still sewing clothes for neighbors? How old are you now?" I answer with little smiles, trimming the truth so it doesn't bruise anyone's appetite. I tell them about Brazil, about our narrow house with a yard that smelled of acerola in the summer, about my sewing machine that roared like a train in the night. For a moment they listen. For a moment my words hold weight. And then Camila tilts her head, lips curving into that sugar-sweet blade. "Helena tells the most wonderful stories," she says. Although she does like to exaggerate a little. Laughter ripples. She isn't finished. Like the house she always talks about selling. It wasn't exactly a house, was it, Helena? More like a garage with a roof. The laughter thickens, awkward but real. My fork feels heavy in my hand. In that moment, I see it clearly. Her game is not about truth. It's about shrinking me until I disappear. And for the first time that night, I feel the old rage rise like a tide in my chest. Camila, my daughter-in-law, is 40. She is beautiful. She always has been. She speaks in a hurry and walks as if she is late for a better life waiting just ahead. She says that family is her priority And perhaps it is, as long as the family fits into the frame she has hung on the living room wall. When Daniel introduced her to me, I noticed a determined glow in her eyes. When they married, I was still painting my nails with the same cheap red polish that Arnaldo loved. Camila brought me a French manicure kit and said it looked more discreet. Modern, she called it. I put it away in a drawer. I never used it. Today is Sunday, and there will be a dinner at their house. Sort of a pre-birthday, Daniel wrote in the app. Nothing formal. I laughed to myself. With Camila, even nothing formal comes with separate cutlery for appetizers and napkins folded like lilies. I pressed my navy blue dress, the heavy one, and set aside my chain with the small medal of Our Lady of Aparecida, a gift from my mother, which has crossed oceans and time with me. While arranging an apple pie I learned to bake at my first job here. I remember the day I sold our small house in the old neighborhood to pay for Daniel's college. He never knew the whole truth. He only knows the surface. Mom always managed. Beneath that surface lies a floor made from nights spent sewing for others, scrubbing strangers' staircases, translating documents for people who never remembered my name. Life was a quilt, and I was the thread. I leave with the pie wrapped in a checkered cloth. The sky is the color of a bruised peach. I feel a stumble in my chest that is not fatigue, it is premonition. With Camila, I learned that humiliation does not begin with loud words. It begins with a raised eyebrow. When I arrive at Daniel's house, the sky has already slipped into evening, the bruised peach fading into violet, the first stars daring to appear. Their street is calm, almost too perfect, the kind of neighborhood where silence is groomed along with the lawns, where even the children's laughter feels subdued, polite, rehearsed. I pause at the gate for a moment, the pie still warm against my arm, and breathe in slowly. I tell myself it is only dinner, that there is nothing to fear. But the heart does not listen to reason. It trembles with what it knows before words can catch up. The door opens before I can knock twice. Sophia throws herself against me, her arms tightening around my waist. "Grandma, you brought the pie, didn't you?" Her voice is eager, like the waves that rush without hesitation. Behind her, Miguel darts past barefoot, carrying a toy airplane. He shouts my name with all the freedom his lungs can hold, and for a moment, I am not 70, not worn by years. I am simply someone needed, someone loved. Camila appears next, her figure framed by the light of the entryway. She is elegant as always, her hair smooth, her dress chosen with deliberate care. She smiles, the kind of smile that shows teeth but not softness. "Helena, you made it," she says, stepping aside to let me in. Her eyes fall briefly on the basket I am carrying, scanning the cloth, the edges of the pie tin. "How thoughtful," she adds, as though the thought itself were an accessory she must acknowledge, but does not plan to wear. Inside, the table is already set. White plates gleam beneath the chandelier, crystal glasses catch the light, and napkins folded into perfect triangles wait like soldiers in formation. I glance at Daniel, who is standing near the kitchen door, phone in hand, half listening, half distracted. When he finally sees me, he tucks the device into his pocket and hugs me. His embrace is quick, almost hurried, but it warms me nonetheless. "Glad you're here, Mom," he says. His words are simple, but they settle into me like a blessing. Laura comes down the stairs slowly, her headphones around her neck, her eyes still half in another world. She mutters a hello, then leans in unexpectedly to press her chin to my shoulder. "Happy early birthday, Grandma," she whispers before vanishing back into herself. It is enough. In that brief gesture, I feel the thread of connection pulling taut, strong enough to hold against whatever silence might come. Dinner begins with the kind of orchestrated smoothness that belongs to Camila. She moves between kitchen and table like a conductor, directing the placement of dishes, correcting the angle of serving spoons, reminding the children to sit straight. The food is beautiful, arranged as if it were meant for a magazine rather than hungry mouths. My pie rests at the edge of the table, wrapped still in its towel. I notice it does not match the polished symmetry of everything else, but it waits patiently like me. Conversation starts light. Daniel talks about a new project at work, the stress of deadlines, the endless virtual meetings. Camila interrupts to add her commentary, explaining how difficult it is to manage the children's schedules when Daniel works late. She does not look at me when she speaks, but her words float across the table like warnings. I listen quietly, sipping water, watching Laura draw absent circles on her plate, Sophia doodling on a napkin, Miguel fidgeting with his fork. At one point, Camila leans toward me and says, "Helena, you should try the risotto. It's authentic from a recipe I found online, much lighter than traditional ones." Her voice carries the suggestion that lighter is always better, that heavier, whether food or people, should be avoided. I smile politely, take a spoonful, and thank her. The taste is delicate, but it dissolves quickly, leaving me hungry for something more solid, something that lingers. Later, when the children beg for dessert, Daniel finally gestures to my pie. "Mom made her apple pie," he announces, his voice tinged with pride. For a moment, Camila's jaw tightens, but she recovers quickly, fetching plates and knives. The children cheer, their voices filling the room with music no chandelier can outshine. I slice the pie slowly, the smell of cinnamon rising like memory itself. Each bite the children take feels like a secret victory, a reminder that love often lives in the simplest things, in butter, in apples, in hands that have known labor. As the night stretches, laughter flickers here and there, fragile but real. Yet beneath it all, I sense the undercurrent, Camila's glances sharp and assessing, Daniel's fatigue, heavy in his shoulders, the children's unspoken needs tugging like waves at low tide. I sit in the middle of it all, 70 years old, watching, absorbing, storing every sound in silence. Because that is what I do. That is what I have always done. When the table is finally cleared and goodnights are exchanged, I wrap myself once more in my navy dress and medal, and I carry the basket home empty but not hollow. Outside, the night air tastes of salt and seaweed again, carrying me back to Arnaldo, to the shoreline, to every memory I have kept alive. The road is quiet, the houses asleep, but inside me the sounds remain, the laughter, the hum of voices, the scrape of forks against porcelain, the silent weight of a raised eyebrow. I gather it all. I keep it all. And in that keeping I endure. The house greets me with its faithful chorus. The soft click of the latch, the faint wheeze of the hallway vent, the tired bulb in the entry that hums before it remembers how to shine. I set the empty basket on the table and untie the checkered towel, smoothing its creases the way I used to smooth Daniel's hair after a fever. The pie tin is clean. Miguel insisted on scraping the last syrupy edge with his fork, and the absence of crumbs feels like a benediction. Love leaves traces. Tonight it left none, because it was all consumed. I take off my navy dress and hang it on the back of the bedroom chair, where the moon can lay a quiet hand upon it. The metal of Our Lady of Aparecida touches my collarbone with a small, familiar chill. I press it once between my fingers before placing it in the dish by the bed. From the window, the ocean is only a rumor, but the wind still carries salt like a secret meant only for those who have waited long enough to hear it. My phone lights up on the nightstand. A message from Daniel. "Thanks for coming, Mom. Pie was a hit. Love you." The words are brief, like stepping stones across a stream, enough to cross, not enough to rest on. I answer with a simple heart and then put the phone face down, as if that gesture could quiet all the rooms inside me. In the kitchen, the kettle breathes itself toward a boil. I don't need tea. I need the sound of almost. The faucet drips in a measured patience. The clock pecks its beak at the top of every minute. At 70, I have learned to trust the orchestra of ordinary things. They continue whether or not anyone listens. And this is a mercy. I sit at the table with a slice of bread and butter, not because I am hungry, but because my hands wish to remember work that is humble and precise. The butter yields to the knife in a soft curve. I spread, I fold the bread, I take a bite. It tastes like a small promise kept. Tonight's dinner replays itself in fragments. Laura's chin on my shoulder, Sophia's wail sketched in the margin of a folded place card, Miguel's shout. Daniel's laugh, brief and tired like a match. And Camila's eyebrow, a gentle hook in the air. I do not hate her. I do not even wish her unkindness. I only wish for a table where love does not have to arrive disguised as perfection. Arnaldo would have teased me for brooding. "You keep every sound as if silence were a thief," he once said, tapping the side of my head with his knuckle. He was a man who walked heavily, a man whose footsteps announced comfort long before his arms did. I close my eyes and hear him crossing the old apartment. 1, 2, 3, pausing to fill the kettle, humming a tune he never finished. Grief is not a wound that closes. It is a room the house keeps, even when guests have long since forgotten it exists. I wipe the table with a damp cloth, though there is nothing to wipe. Keeping is my habit, order my prayer. In the closet by the hallway, boxes rise like calm towers. Documents, winter scarves, photo albums. One box is labeled with my own careful hand, receipts. Daniel says it with a smile, Mom and her receipts. He does not know that each slip of paper is a tally in a secret ledger, proof that the bridge between 2 months held. That, once upon a time, money and courage were both measured in coins and in quiet. Another chime from the phone. A message from Laura, late enough to feel like mischief. A photo of 3 empty plates and a caption, "Best pie." I send her 3 stars and type, "Sleep well, my love." I hesitate, then add, "Tell Sophia her whales should always have oceans big enough for them. Tell Miguel I'm practicing my airplane catch." I hit send before doubt can interfere. Across the dark, somewhere, a teenager rolls her eyes and smiles anyway. The kettle clicks off. I pour hot water over a sliver of lemon and sit at the window. St. Augustine's night has its own palette. The pewter of rooftops, the narrow silver of streets, the stubborn gold of one porch light that never seems to learn bedtime. Somewhere a dog barks twice, offended by nothing in particular. The wooden frame under my elbow gives a quiet, familiar pop, as if the house were flexing its memory. I think of the day I sold our small house, of the man who counted out the bills without looking at me, of the way Daniel hugged me that night, unaware that a wall of our life had just been traded for his future. Sacrifice is not a story I ever told well. To tell it is to add a price tag to love, and I never wanted love to feel bought. Still, on nights like this, I open the drawer in my mind where the receipts live and rustle them softly, just to remember the shape of what we paid. A moth taps the glass once, then again, a tiny drummer asking entry to a concert already underway. I turn off the lamp so it can believe it has won. In the dimness, the metal on the dish picks up the moon and holds it, a small circle of borrowed light. I think of Camilla's word, modern, said as if modern were a destination one could arrive at and stay. Modern is only a season. Kindness, when it is real, is climate. The premonition that tugged at me earlier is quieter now, not gone. Perhaps it was only the ordinary terror of love, the knowledge that everything we cherish lives under a sky without guarantees. Or perhaps it is a herald of some change already walking in our direction. Either way, I set a second bowl on the counter, fill it with the children's favorite cereal, cover it with a plate. Tomorrow they might visit after school, or they might not. Some offerings are made to time itself. Before bed, I open the wardrobe and run my hand along the sleeve of the navy dress. You did well, I tell it, and what I mean is, we did not fracture. I place the checkered towel to dry, line up my shoes, lay the phone on its back like a sleeping fish. In the bathroom mirror, I find my mother's mouth and a new web of lines at the corner of my left eye. I touch them, not to erase, but to greet. The face keeps our minutes the way the sea keeps its tides. When I finally lie down, the mattress exhales as if it, too, has been waiting to confess its ache. I pull the sheet to my chin and listen. The refrigerator's distant sermon, the clock's steady footstep, a gull's late cry broken into the night like porcelain. All of it joins the archive I carry, economies, words, memories, silences. And then, in the center of the house that is my chest, a door unlatches softly. I step into sleep the way one steps into a chapel, cautious, grateful, leaving room for mystery. In the morning, there will be floors to sweep, and maybe a message from Daniel, and perhaps a list from Camilla for a school fundraiser. There will be sunlight like a soft verdict on the countertop, and the ocean, still rehearsing the same old song. I will tie my hair, pin the medal to my collar, and walk. St. Augustine will creak with the weight of what it remembers, and I will carry the rest, because that is what I know how to do. I keep, and in the keeping, everything continues. The morning arrives with a pale wash of light, the kind that does not announce itself but seeps gently into the room, painting the floorboards silver. I wake before the alarm, as I always do. At 70, the body no longer sleeps for long stretches. It naps in fragments, alert even in rest, as if listening for something it once feared to miss. The air smells faintly of salt. I open the window and let the Atlantic in. The gulls are already circling, calling out as though they owned the horizon. I put on my robe and make coffee, the sound of the kettle steadying me like a drumbeat. As it warms, I glance at the table where last night's towel has dried. I fold it into a neat square and return it to the basket. Objects, when cared for, become witnesses. This towel has carried pies, fruits, loaves of bread. It has wrapped warmth for journeys both short and long. I treat it as one treats a faithful friend, always ready, never demanding. The phone buzzes. A message from Sophia this time. A picture of a sketch, a whale with wings instead of fins, rising from the ocean like a miracle. "Do you think they'd survive in the sky, Grandma?" she writes. I smile at the question. I write back, "Yes. Whales would always find water, even in clouds. They would make their own oceans." Children ask questions that adults are too tired to wonder about anymore. Their imaginations keep the world from closing. Daniel calls later in the morning. His voice is brisk, half distracted. "Hey, Mom. Just checking in. Did you get home okay?" I tell him yes, I did. I always do. He hesitates, then adds, "Camila said thank you again for the pie. And for coming. It means a lot. I want to say it means more to me, but the words stay in my chest, folded like letters unsent. Instead I tell him, "Of course, Daniel. That's what mothers do." After we hang up, silence returns, though it is not empty. Silence is full of echoes. Arnaldo's footsteps, my mother's lullabies, the cries of my newborn Daniel, the rustle of pages I once translated late into the night. I sit with it like an old companion. Later, I walk into town. St. Augustine is alive with tourists, their cameras swinging, their voices carrying the brightness of discovery. I move slower than them, but I see more. I notice the cracks in the walls where ivy insists on growing, the way the cobblestones carry the memory of centuries of feet, the shop windows reflecting both present and past. History here is not buried, it breathes. I stop at the church, light a candle, and sit for a while. The pew beneath me groans with the familiarity of countless bodies. I do not pray for miracles anymore. I pray for endurance. Endurance for Daniel, so he can keep running without losing himself. Endurance for the children, so they may grow without hardening. Endurance for Camila, even that she might one day discover that kindness is stronger than control. And endurance for myself, that I may continue to keep what must be kept and let go of what will only weigh me down. When I return home, the mail waits in a small stack, bills, advertisements, a letter from a cousin in Brazil. Her handwriting is looping, generous, like the voice I remember from our childhood. She writes of her garden, of her grandchildren, of the mango tree that refuses to die no matter how harsh the storms. I read her words slowly, as if each were a seed planted in the soil of my afternoon. Evening comes quietly. I prepare a simple meal, rice, beans, a fried egg, and eat at the small table where the checkered towel lay last night. I pour myself a glass of water and raise it like a toast, though there is no one to clink against. To survival, I murmur. To the ordinary that carries us through the extraordinary. Before bed, I open the window once more. The ocean's voice is steady, eternal, as if it has been rehearsing the same hymn for centuries and will continue long after I am gone. I close my eyes and imagine Arnaldo walking beside me along the shore, Daniel's still a boy running ahead, the children chasing kites shaped like whales. Memory and hope fold into each other until I can no longer tell where one ends and the other begins. And so another day closes, not with applause, but with the gentle settling of silence. I gather it, as always. I keep it, because keeping is the only way I know to carry love forward. The night presses softly against my windows, not harsh like winter nights once were, but heavy with the warmth of Florida air. It feels almost alive, like a creature circling the house, reminding me of time's insistence that nothing ever stays still. At 70, I lie in bed aware of every shift, the mattress breathing beneath me, the window frame sighing, the clock striking its notes into the silence. Sleep, once a river I could float through without effort, has become a chain of shallow pools. I step into one, half dream, half memory, then stumble back out again at the smallest ripple, a creak, a bird cry, a sudden thought that refuses to be hushed. When I close my eyes, I do not dream of the future. Instead, I drift backward. Brazil returns to me not as a full landscape, but in fragments. The smell of roasted coffee drifting from the neighbor's stove, mingling with the damp scent of morning rain. Barefoot children racing through narrow streets, their laughter sharp as glass and yet somehow pure. The glow of late afternoons when the sky burned the color of ripe guava, and my mother's voice echoing from the doorway, calling me inside before the shadows grew long. I can see her hands, broad, sturdy, stained from years of labor, and I ache with both gratitude and grief. Those memories are pressed flowers inside my chest, brittle but still fragrant if I dare to unfold them. I remember, too, the day Arnaldo and I left. We owned so little, and the suitcase we carried was smaller than our courage, too small to hold what we were leaving behind. My mother slipped the medal of Our Lady of Aparecida into my palm, whispering, "For protection." I wanted to appear strong, to convince her and myself that I was ready. But when the boat pulled away, I wept quietly into Arnaldo's shirt. He smelled of soap and sweat and determination. He kissed the top of my head and murmured promises. How we would build a new life, how the sea could not erase who we were. He was right. The sea did not erase me. It stretched me, expanded me in ways I could not yet name. America was not gentle with us, but it gave us what we needed to endure. I worked wherever I could, scrubbing floors that gleamed only for those who never noticed my name, sewing seams until my fingers pulsed with red, translating documents under dim light while Daniel slept beside a half-finished homework assignment. Each dollar earned was folded carefully away, like a prayer whispered to no one in particular. Slowly, life was pieced together. Daniel grew tall and stubborn, like the mango tree my cousin still writes about in her letters from Brazil, rooted in rocky soil, yet refusing to stop. The kettle hums from the kitchen. I must have left it filled with water. I rise, pulling a shawl around my shoulders, and walk barefoot across the wood floor. The boards greet me with small groans, each one familiar, each one part of the house's vocabulary. I silence the kettle, though its song comforts me. It reminds me that the house and I still breathe together. I pour a little water into a cup and carry it to the window. Outside, the palms bend slightly, their fronds whispering secrets I cannot translate. The ocean is invisible now, swallowed by darkness, but I know its hymn continues, eternal and restless. Daniel's children appear in my mind. Laura, armor of adolescence wrapped tight around her, yet her heart still soft enough to lean into my shoulder. Sophia, sketching whales that long for skies, trusting me with her secrets as though I were a vault made of love. Miguel, wild and boundless, running at me with joy so fierce it almost knocks me down. They do not know the weight of my past, and I do not want them to, not yet. Childhood should be oceans, not receipts. Let them dream, let them draw, let them run. I will keep the rest. Camila drifts into my thoughts, as she always does after a family gathering. For years I tried to see her only through the shadows she cast. The lifted eyebrow, the polished judgment, the perfection that feels like distance. But tonight I wonder, what if her sharpness is only another form of fear? What if her insistence on folded napkins and tidy frames is her way of holding chaos at bay? I do not hate her. I never have. Perhaps in her own way, she carries her family with the same desperation I once carried mine. Perhaps she is simply louder about it. I sip the hot water slowly, tasting only lemon and heat, and let the night settle around me. Midnight edges closer. The house creaks softly, stretching its bones. I glance at the dish where the metal lies, catching the moonlight like a coin tossed into the dark. I tell myself, as I have told myself for decades, Helena, you are enough. Even if no one sees the stitches, you are the thread. Without thread, the quilt is only scraps. That sentence steadies me. It is the truth I have lived by. My son does not see the nights I traded sleep for survival, nor do my grandchildren. Camila cannot read the story written in my calloused hands. But that is as it should be. My work was never meant to shine, it was meant to hold. I close my eyes and breathe. The kettle clicks as it cools, the refrigerator hums, a moth taps twice against the window glass. Outside, the sea rehearses its endless hymn. And I, for another night, gather it all, sounds, silences, glances, memories. I keep them, because keeping is the only way I know to carry love forward. The morning greets me with a sky the color of pale porcelain, clouds drifting lazily as though the day has no reason to hurry. I dress slowly, fastening the medal of Our Lady to my chain, letting it rest against my chest like a heartbeat I can touch. My bones ache a little more than yesterday, but I have long stopped resenting that. Pain, too, is a form of memory. By mid-morning, there is a knock at the door. It is not Daniel. He never knocks like that, always hurried, always with his phone still in hand. This knock is uneven, light, impatient. When I open, Miguel bursts inside, his backpack half open, a book dangling from it, his hair wild with the freedom of childhood. "Grandma, I told Daddy I wanted to see you today. He said it was okay." Behind him, Laura follows slower, her eyes hidden beneath the shade of her hood. Sophia trails in last, carrying a sketchbook pressed to her chest. I smile so wide my face feels younger. "My lights," I whisper, and the house seems to wake with them. They scatter quickly. Miguel runs to the kitchen, looking for snacks. Sophia sits at the table, already opening her sketchbook to show me the whale with wings she had sent by phone the night before. Laura sinks into the armchair, earbuds ready, but I see the way her gaze flicks to me, making sure I notice her presence even if she pretends to be absent. "Grandma," Sophia asks, Do you think whales could talk if they lived in the sky? I laugh softly. I think they already talk. We're just too busy to hear them. She grins and goes back to drawing, her pencil dancing across the page like a secret being revealed. Miguel returns, mouth full of crackers, and climbs onto my lap as if I am still strong enough to carry the world. "Tell me a story," he demands, crumbs tumbling down his shirt. "A story about when Dad was my age." I pause because the stories I hold are heavier than I want for him. But I choose carefully, pulling out the lighter ones. The kites Daniel flew until the string burned his palms, the soccer ball that rolled into the neighbor's garden, the time he pretended to be a pirate on the roof until I almost fainted with fear. Miguel laughs so loudly the house seems to echo. Laura lifts her head, pretending not to listen, but I see the faint smile tugging at her lips. She is 15, wrapped in her own walls, yet still reachable if one knocks gently enough. I decide to knock. "Laura," I say, "do you know what your father gave me on my 50th birthday?" She shrugs, feigning disinterest. He stood up in front of everyone and said, "Everything I am is because of my mom." He cried while he said it, too. Laura's eyes widen, a quick crack in her armor. She doesn't answer, but her earbuds remain silent in her lap. That is answer enough. The hours stretch, filled with the small chaos of children. Miguel turns the hallway into a racetrack. Sophia asks for my help shading the tail of her whale. Laura scrolls through her phone, but once in a while she looks at me and doesn't look away too quickly. I make sandwiches, pouring juice into mismatched glasses. They eat around the table that has witnessed so many silences, and suddenly it feels alive again. In the late afternoon, Daniel arrives to collect them. His face is tired, his tie loosened, but when he sees the children, something softens. "Thanks, Mom," he says, kissing my cheek quickly. "I didn't want them to be cooped up while Camila was busy." I nod, saying nothing about Camila, saying nothing at all. Love is sometimes best spoken in silence. When they leave, the house grows quiet again, but it is a different quiet now. Not heavy, not foreboding. It is a silence woven with laughter and crumbs, with sketches left on the table, with the warmth of Miguel's small body still lingering in my lap. I walk to the window, the sky now turning gold, and whisper to the empty room. I keep, and for once, the silence answers with something like peace. Evening finds me sorting a drawer I have avoided for years, the one where papers sleep like old seas. Receipts, yes, but also postcards with faded suns, a lock of Daniel's baby hair twisted into a ribbon that has lost its blue, and at the very bottom, a thin envelope with Arnaldo's handwriting. I know the slope of his letters the way sailors know constellations. I sit at the table, breathe once, and unfold the paper. The letter is dated the week Daniel learned to ride a bicycle. "Helena," it begins, "you will laugh at me, but today I felt jealous of our son. He flew before I did. He balanced on two thin lines and the world held. I remember the day, Arnaldo running behind the bicycle, his hand on the seat, letting go, grabbing again, letting go. I realized something." The letter continues. "Love is the art of removing your hand and pretending you didn't, so that courage can believe it belongs to the one you love." I press my lips to the paper as if it were a relic. He always knew how to say the things I only knew how to do. I make tea and carry the cup to the porch. St. Augustine's dusk is a careful painter. It lays lavender along the fences, spills gold across the palm fronds, then lets a single star pierce the canvas before the rest. Somewhere a radio plays a song from long ago, and an old couple walks past, their shadows joined at the hip. I think of the small jealousies that visited our marriage like brief storms, how I envied his certainty, how he envied my endurance, and how, afterward, we folded the umbrella and kept going beneath the same sky. My phone buzzes. A message from Camila. It startles me more than thunder. "Thank you for having the kids today," she writes. "Miguel won't stop talking about pie crumbs and airplane catches. Sorry I didn't say it earlier. I was swamped." I stare at the screen, at the apology that isn't quite an apology, at the gratitude trying to wear high heels. I type, erase, type again. They're always welcome. I kept Sophia's whale drawing here. Tell her it has a home. I add a small photo of the sketch on my table. 3 dots appear, disappear, appear again. "That's kind," she replies. "We'll pick it up Sunday. I'll bring coffee." It is a tiny bridge. Narrow. Wobbly. But I decide to step on it. Night deepens. I return to the drawer and pull out an old map we once kept in the car. The paper is soft with age, creased where life turned us left instead of right. I trace the coastline with my finger, past towns I have never visited, to the place we first arrived. I whisper the names like prayers. Distance, after all, is just time kneeling. A breeze slips through the window and nudges the metal in its dish. I pin it to my nightgown. The metal finds my skin as a key finds its lock. I think of the ship that carried us here, of the sea that didn't erase me but stretched me, of the way motherhood stretched me again, and grief after that. I am, perhaps, a woman made of elastic truths, pulled and pulled yet returning, if not to the same shape, then to one I can still live inside. Sleep does not come, so I lace my shoes and walk to the shore. The path knows me. I could follow it with my eyes closed. The crooked mailbox that always frowns, the jasmine that perfumes the air even when it pretends it doesn't, the bench where a brass plaque remembers someone the world forgot. The ocean greets me with its dependable unrest. I stand at the edge and let the foam touch my feet. It is a familiar conversation. The sea speaks, I answer by standing still. Arnaldo arrives the way he always does here. First as a rhythm in the waves, then as a warmth on my shoulder where his hand used to rest. "You took your hand away," I tell him softly, thinking of the letter, of Daniel on his bicycle, of all the letting go we never learned to celebrate. A gull lifts and wheels, a pale comma against the dark. I take it as punctuation to a sentence I haven't finished yet. On the walk back, I pass a window where a family is gathered around a table. Their laughter spills onto the street like light. I do not envy them. I simply add their sound to my archive. By the time I reach home, the world inside me is full enough to be quiet. At the sink, I rinse the teacup, set it upside down. The small act of ceremony. I place Arnaldo's letter inside a new envelope, write today's date on the corner, and slide it into the drawer where the important things rest. Then I do something that surprises even me. I take the French manicure kit Camila once gave me from the back of the dresser. I set it on the table. I do not open it. I only decide I may. Before bed, I choose a book at random from the shelf. A line meets me like an old friend. We endure by telling our days to themselves. I close the cover, smile, and speak the day back. Children's footsteps, a text that softened, the ocean's faithful argument, a letter that still knows my name. I tell these things to the darkness so that morning won't have to ask what happened. In the mirror, I find Arnaldo's steadiness where my own used to be, Daniel's brow where worry has taken root, my mother's mouth reminding me to sleep. I touch each inheritance like a bead on a rosary. Then I switch off the light and let the house make its night sounds. The drawer sigh, the roof settle, the wood offer its thin applause. Tomorrow might bring nothing special. A list from the market, a call from the clinic to confirm an appointment, perhaps Camila at the door with coffee and a smile that lands more softly than before. Or it might bring something I cannot yet name. Either way, I will make the bed and smooth the towel and leave a corner of the day open for wonder. I will stand where the ocean can find me. I will keep what needs keeping and let the rest float back to the sea. And if the wind is right, I will ride my small courage like a bicycle, feel the brief, luminous balance between the letting go and the holding on, and hear Arnaldo in the distance, laughing the laugh of a man who knew that love is, above all, a hand learning when not to touch.